Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. We hope that everybody is well and will be better. In this forthcoming presentation, which is controversial for some and clarity for others, and a lack of concern by even others, brothers and sisters, we care to get into this matter. We are going to, brothers and sisters, have 10 PowerPoints. We know, not to be disrespectful to self, that not everyone may agree with our stance. But one of the things we care to point out emphatically is that our stance comes from the scriptures. You do not hear, when speaking upon the matter of why we are Old Testament based, well, my teacher said this or my teacher said that. It is based primarily upon what we can gain and ascertain from the scriptures itself, brothers and sisters. So, what do we intend to gain out of this kind of matter, out of this kind of presentation? Is the fact that when we speak upon, for instance, Vespasian, or what happened with the children of Israel during the timing of the Roman Empire, there was no said canonized New Testament in that particular case. The timing that the New Testament places itself when we read in the gospel writings is during the time of Rome's emperor Augustus and his successor Tiberius. The star of the New Testament, said by some as Jesus, said by some as Yeshua, said by some as Yahushai, said by some as Yahushua. In this platform, and not to be disrespectful, he is referred to as Mary's son. Brothers and sisters. And what we have attempted to show is the deification of such. Let us, before we get into this matter here, explain why we are saying that, if we will. Thank you for that. If we were to go, brothers and sisters, into the New Testament, and we were to go to Philippians 2 in the standard King James Version, brothers and sisters, here is what we read in that. Philippians 2, verse 5. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Now, brothers and sisters, when we read, in for instance, in Isaiah, all right, also using the King James Version, if we will, in Isaiah 46, right, KJV, let's see what we see in that case. It says in here, in Isaiah 46, verse 4, and even to your old age, I am he, and even to hoar hairs will I carry you. I have made, and I will bear, even I will carry and will deliver you. We are reading in Isaiah chapter 46. To whom will you liken me and make me the most high equal and compare me that we may be like? Well, now when we go, no offense, brothers and sisters, into the New Testament, in Philippians chapter 2, verse 6, who, this is speaking of Jesus, being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. How can the one who was born be equal to the one who made humans? How can one, even said to have walked on water, be equal to the one who made water? How can the one who made the heavens and the earth be compared to beings who cannot be on earth or beings who cannot be in the heavens? Who said of himself in the Bible, in Isaiah, says, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. So, in that being the case, if we will, how then is one, in this case, Mary's son or anybody else's son, equal to the everlasting Father? So what some have done, believe it or not, have gone into the Old Testament and sadly mistranslated parts of such. Let's go to a famous one, if we will, with the timing allotted. Somebody made a comment and talk about it, Moray, Groove, NYC. Shalom, my brother or sister. Peace to you. I don't know your gender, so I say brother or sister, but thank you for joining us in this. All right? Let's look about it, if we will. We are going to pull the PowerPoint up, but that's later. But brothers and sisters, when we look at Isaiah in the Old Testament, in the Standard King James, it says in verse 6, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end. Upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice, from henceforth even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts perform this. All right, the brother said that his name is Moshe from Kosherit in the Bronx. Yeah, I spoke about Kosherit in the previous lesson. If you on Mora Yeshai Torah lessons and giving enough respect on a human level to our teacher, well, the teacher there was Mora Yosef. When we look at this here, it says, for unto us a child is born. So now, who is the us that Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 is talking about? The people. You read about Zebulun and Naphtali in verse 1. So now it goes on to say this. Unto us a son is given. A son is a child according to this that's born. Let's look what it says. And the government shall be upon his shoulder. So this child obviously is to grow up and have the government on his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father. Let's stop there at the moment. How can a son, a child, be the everlasting Father? A son can become a father, but if you're from everlasting as that father, how could you come into the earth as a son unless you're talking about, as they say in Christianity, the concept of some parts of the New Testament that God became man and dwelt among men? Not that we pass away and our spirit may go up, as Solomon says, but the physical stays down. So what is going on in this particular case, as we see in Philippians, brothers and sisters, is a matter of man being made into God. Philippians 2 verse 7 in the New Testament, but made himself of no reputation and took upon him the form of a servant and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. This, and I say in no disrespect, brothers and sisters, is foreign to the Israelite brothers and sisters who are deemed to be Old Testament based, Torah based, Tanakh based, if you will. Now, mind you, when you say Tanakh, the T in Tanakh stands for Torah. But Messianic brothers and sisters will say, who is referred to as Jesus, that he was and is the walking Torah. So if he was and is the walking Torah, according to some, why are there Israelites attempting to insult other Israelites? Oh, you only have book. Oh, you only Torah. They do not, correct me if I'm wrong, say that Jesus is the new covenant or the New Testament. See, what has happened is this, and I'm open to constructive criticism. But what we do know and understand, brothers and sisters, in Isaiah 46, verses 5 and 6, when it says, to whom, where the Most High Yah speaks, to whom will you liken me, that we may be equal? And then we see in Philippians that it was according to their concept, no robbery, that one, in this case, they're talking about Jesus, could be equal to the Almighty Father. Now, when you go back in Isaiah 9, verse 6, in the horribly mistranslated version, and I don't say that to be insulting, but to give honor to the Most High, it says in Isaiah 9, verse 6, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. Let's go to verse 1. Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation, when at the first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. So it talks about what we understand today as the northern kingdom. It's talking about Israelites. So now unto us a son is born. It's talking about a son being born to the people of the house of Israel. And the government shall be upon his shoulder. So now this government, the rule matter, shall be upon the shoulder. The burden, for the lack of a better term, shall be borne, carried, borne, B-O-R-N-E, that is, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Now, here is the issue, brothers and sisters. Because of grammatical matters, they have been able to put comma after comma after comma in verse 6, which makes it look like those things are titles that one is named. Let's go Hebraically, if we will, brothers and sisters. And let's go to Isaiah chapter 9. Okay. We want to go to Isaiah chapter 9, but go into the Hebrew and let's see what it says in that case. That the government may be, oh no, sorry, in verse 5 in this part here. For unto us a child is born, a son is given to us, and the government is upon his shoulder, and his name is called Pele Oet El Gibor Abiyat Sarah Shalom. Now in Hebrew, let's translate that, brothers and sisters, because in Hebrew, we don't see those commas that we see in this part here, even in the Old Testament KJV, right? You got wonderful, comma, counselor, comma, the mighty God, comma, the everlasting Father. We've already asked, how can a son that is born be the everlasting Father? How can a woman give birth to the mighty God? Who is the father of the mighty God? Your God has a birth date, then that is a problem in the understanding of the house of Israel. Eloheinu, me olam ad olam. Our God is from everlasting to everlasting. Ain't Yom Huledet, there is no birth date. Ain't Ima, ain't Abba, there is no mother or father. Who ose ko debarim, he makes all things. Who shofet ko debarim, he judges all things. Lo yishapet, he shall not be judged. Eloheinu, hu lo naase, our God, he was not made. Eloheinu, hu yodea hakol, our God, he knows all things. And they know your kolim, the whole dot. Eloheinu, Ladai. We're not even able to thank our God enough, much less know everything. So these are things, brothers and sisters, when we get into this matter, let's look and see what it says, brothers and sisters, in say Hebrew. Ki yeled yulad lanu, right? Ki yeled yulad lanu. For unto us, lanu to us, ki because yeled a child, yulad was born to our stem, all right? Bain nitan lanu. Bain nitan, a son is given. That nitan is the nifal stem, to receive, to be given. Bain nitan lanu, a son is given to us. Wati has hamisra, sorry. And it shall be hamisra. Misra, from that word meaning to rule or government, dominion, al shikmo, upon his shoulder, from the word shekem, which means shoulder. Wayikra, and he is called, and he is named. Shemo, his name. Pele, wonderful. Your eighth, counselor. El Gibor, is God the Almighty. Abi-Ad, everlasting Father. Sar Shalom, the ruler of peace. So now it has not a bunch of commas. What we're dealing with is a matter of saying that this child's name will be called Wonderful Counselor, is God the Almighty, the everlasting Father, the ruler of peace. It's like saying Eliab, God is my father. Abishua, my father is salvation. The person named Abishua, meaning my father is salvation, or Elishua, meaning my God is salvation, is not the salvation himself that came from the cervix of a woman and out of the loins of a man. If one were to say Eliel, my God is God, the person with that name is not the God. That name is giving praise to the true and the living God. That is what we want to emphasize in that manner. But what happens even in the KJV, brothers and sisters, in the Old Testament version of the King James Version, to fit Jesus in and so forth, because King James wrote with Catholic tendencies, as Moses Farrar pointed out in his book, May the Elder Be Blessed, and continue in his life, we have it to where it became a thing where the deification of Jesus was sought. So somebody had left a comment. It says, Paul is an apostate. There was no such thing as the New Testament during the time of Jesus or Yeshua / Yahushua. Yes, that is true in that particular case. All right. And somebody wrote satanic cult. Not sure who that's directed to or so. But brothers and sisters, when we deal, if I may be heard, brothers and sisters, please press the number 4 of viewing good spirits. We want to explain with that intro, which was an intro, because it's now 11 a.m., 11:01 a.m., and we intended to start at 11 a.m. But I wanted to give an intro with that to show why we say what we say regarding, thank you, it's all good, my older brother in spirit, for typing that in. Thank you, Shakur, the young lion, for typing that in. I'm trying to be as stringent and as whatever deep word we can get regarding the audio as much as possible. All right. And my silly self earlier testing it, put in a part of the microphone that wasn't connected to the microphone, calling myself going thorough. Then I had to look like, hold on. But brothers and sisters, as we get into this kind of matter, what we are seeing is the deification of a man. And Isaiah 46 translated correctly. It says, to whom will you liken me that we may be equal? Well, according to Philippians, they're saying that a man, and it's no disrespect to him as a person. I've lost fights. I've won fights. But here you have somebody who lost the fight, being the vicar physically in image of the Most High God. So the God of Israel was on earth in the form of a man to live as a man, not what Psalms 4 says. Let's see, brothers and sisters, even if we go to the King James Version of it, right? Which is the standard that most use. Psalms 4, right? Let's see. All right. What it says in that particular case. All right. Hear me when I call, O Elohim, of my righteousness. Thou hast enlarged me when I was in distress. Have mercy upon me and hear my prayer. O ye sons of men, how long will you turn my glory into shame? How long will ye love vanity and seek after leasing? Selah. But know that the Most High has set apart him that is godly for himself. Yah will hear when I call upon him. What are we reading right there? Even in the KJV in Psalms chapter 4, verse 3. The Most High set apart him that is godly. Man has to be, if anything, like God in being godly, not God being manly. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord thy God, am holy. That's in Leviticus. We are the image of the Most High, not the Most High, the image of us. Not that he came down and lived as a man and sinned and got killed and beat up. Prior to that, he became the sacrificial lamb, an animal. And this is not as men to be disrespectful. When people would say that God is a physical man with arms as us and hands as us, are we to think that he has a phallus, a male private organ? Is that what we're saying? Do people who want to say that Yah has a wife named Asherah had children? Absolutely not. But let me digress and get back, if we will. When you hear people say, quote unquote, Asherah is the wife of Yahweh, what they're saying is first blasphemous. Secondly, the Most High Yah in the book he's spoken said, if anything, Yisrael, Israel is his wife in Isaiah 54. Why? Because a husband carries his wife. A husband betroths his wife, takes care of his wife. So that's husbandry in that particular case. But all of that is not understood, brothers and sisters, when you start to deify a man and say that this man had to come down, died by the hands of the enemies of Israel, by the orders of Israel. Then we have, if we go, brothers and sisters, no disrespect intended, right? If we go to Romans, which is in the New Testament, if we will, right? Romans chapter 1. Let's see what it says. Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel of God. Now let's see what Paul says of himself, right? Verse 14, I am a debtor both to the Greeks and to the barbarians, both to the wise and to the unwise. Now let's look at that for instance. Paul is the main contributor of the New Testament. Once you understand, sorry about that. Once you understand what the New Testament is from its table of contents, it's 4 gospel writers, letters or epistles, and then what they call an apocalypse or revelation. So they essentially are three different parts to say the New Testament: the Gospels, the letters, and the apocalypse / revelation. So now let's look at this here. In light of that kind of matter, and Paul saying that he's a debtor to the Greeks and to the barbarians. And when you go in your own time in Acts chapter 13, when he brought the concept of Jesus Christ, according to the New Testament, to the Israelites, they rejected him. You understand? When Paul, according to Acts 13, went to the Israelites with the concept and teachings of Jesus Christ, he was rejected. And then he said, it was meet that we bring you the word first, talking about Paul and Barabbas, but now we turn to the Gentiles. So to the brothers who teach that Paul was writing to Israelites in Rome, in Corinth, in Thessalonica, and all of those European places, knowing since the time of Solomon and certainly into the time of Jeremiah, we find Israelites going, brothers and sisters, to African places. But Paul's journey, mainly, not that Israelites didn't go to Europe, but the bulk of the house of Israel went they carried Jeremiah, the prophet, into Egypt. Uriah went to Egypt during the time of Jeremiah. Jeroboam in the time of Solomon went to Egypt. They were going in great numbers to Egypt and places in Northern Africa. We're going to do a presentation later about that and the matter of the diaspora, but Elohim willing. But brothers and sisters, when we look at that kind of matter, and so forth and so on, Paul wrote to European places, and he was writing to European people. Many say that he was writing to Israelites that was in those places. But unless there are letters missing, which perhaps there were, why do we not see the letter to the Israelites in Egypt, Sudan, Mauritania, Carthage, because Corinth is in Greece. You understand? To the Israelites in Cush. Because see, Isaiah chapter 11, brothers and sisters, talks about where Israel was scattered. Shinar, Elam, the Isles of the Sea, Egypt, Patros, and Cush. So if Paul was writing to Israelites, why did he not write to the ones that Isaiah mentioned in Isaiah chapter 11? Because he was not writing to the house of Israel. When the Israelites rejected him, who were called, as the brother put in there, the Ebionites at the time, he turned, for the lack of a better term, to the white man. That's when you get conversations about, should you be circumcised? Should you eat things that are permissible or not in certain cultures, such as the Israelite culture? How do we explain this, brothers and sisters? And I say again, in no disrespect, all right? In Hebrews chapter 8, here is something to ask in this case. In Hebrews 8, verse 7, for if the first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. For finding fault with them, he saith, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that we are in Hebrews chapter 8, verse 9, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. That doesn't say that in Jeremiah about not regarding them. Let's move on. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws in their mind and write it in their hearts. And I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall teach not every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least to the greatest. Now, here's the question. If, brothers and sisters, the New Testament was the fulfillment of Jeremiah's prophecy that Paul or whoever wrote Hebrews, because they say Paul may have written it, he may have not written it. Regardless, whoever wrote Hebrews, if the New Testament is the fulfillment of the prophecy we know written and spoken of by Jeremiah, then why are people still teaching about the Lord, the God of Israel? Why? According to the prophecy in Jeremiah, it says, when that prophecy comes to pass, no one shall teach, know the Lord, know Yah. But why you still got Moray such and such, Ox such and such class, brothers as far as Minnesota, Milwaukee, brothers as far as Kansas, brothers as far as, and I'll say far because I'm in New Jersey, you understand? As far as South Carolina, as far as Ohio, as far as Mississippi. Why do we have so many classes? Just look at that, for instance, on the Shabbat. Just look at Shabbat. How many classes are conducted saying, know Yah, know who the Most High is? If Jeremiah's prophecy was that. Now, you got Messianic classes and quote-unquote non-Messianic classes. There's a lot of them on the Shabbat. Why do these classes exist? And everyone is saying, know Yah, know the Father. If Jeremiah's prophecy says when the prophecy comes to pass that Jeremiah talks about, nobody shall ask, is because Paul or whoever wrote Hebrews lied on the prophet of the Most High. That's why. No offense intended. If Jesus Christ, Yahushua, Yeshua, or so, died for the sins of the house of Israel, bore the sins of the house of Israel, or as some say, only died for Israel on the cross at Golgotha, and so on, right? Why do you still go to Deuteronomy 28? Why are you still showing pictures of people with the yoke of iron on their neck? Why are you still talking about the ships? Why are we still talking about the diaspora from one end of the earth to the other? Why are we still talking about the byword, the N word, the color word? This person is West Indian. This person is African American, named after two different Caucasians. Why are we still talking about the bywords, hungry, thirsty, and naked, on the ship in the one of all things with a yoke of iron on our neck? Why are we still talking about the broken families? Why are we still talking about his eyes shall be evil toward her and her eyes shall be evil toward him, if Jesus Christ took care of that for us? Because he did not. The words that Daniel spoke upon and said, the oath and the curse that's written in the law of Moses is poured upon us. No one died for you. We're dying because we're not returning to the Most High in the ways, in the numbers that we're leaving this earth. And I don't come here as a prophet, brothers and sisters. But let's continue and see what it also says in here in the New Testament. And it says in verse 11, Hebrews 8:11, and they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins will I, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. And the author goes on to say, in that verse 13, are we ready? And not to be sarcastic, brothers and sisters. In that he saith a new covenant, he has made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. Are we serious? Is ready to vanish away. We're going to look up this portion right here to show it. Sorry about that. In Hebrews 7:12, where I thought it was, right? It says, brothers and sisters, for the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change also of the law. Now, I thought it was there, but I wanted to make sure first by typing. In Hebrews 7:12, about there being a change in the law and that there was a change in the priesthood. Brothers and sisters, there was no change in the priesthood. But in the matter of having to have Jesus there as your priest of the tribe of Judah, where the priest of Israel comes out of the house of Aaron, there had to then say, then a change. So now you got the priesthood and the kingdom, and now he's dead, and he had to die. And this is not to sound, quote, outside of the book, but recently I remember reading, like this week, somebody was saying, well, yes, the Jews gave up Jesus and they crucified him. And they were wrong for that. But let me ask this. When Joseph was sold in the Bible in Genesis by his brothers, what did he tell them? You meant it for evil, but the Most High God meant it for good. So even though you did something you don't forgive yourself for, my brothers, the Most High God meant it for good. Now, if it was the point and the goal of Jesus to have died, the way in which it was sacrifice of a human, how then are the people who did it wrong when it was his mission in the first place? Just the same in the Old Testament, Joseph was telling his brothers, where you see me as a viceroy and government official in Egypt is my mission. The Most High sent me here to save life. Not to get linguistic all the time, but Joseph's Egyptian name, Zipina Ipianku, he who is called he who brings life, transliterated into Hebrew as Zaphana Paneah, but in Egyptian, his name would mean he who is called he who brings life. Joseph was in charge of what was going on, how to save the food for the famine and distribute it during the famine time. He told his brothers, this is what my mission was. Don't think bad about yourself. This is my portion. It was meant for me to be in Egypt to do this. So now if it was meant for Jesus to die for, say, anybody, how then are the people who did it wrong if they helped him in his mission? Because what happens, brothers and sisters, is you're dealing with idolatry and you're dealing with making a man equal to the Most High. And that is why when you go in Proverbs, add not to his words, lest he reprove you and you be found a liar. That's the issue with that. In deifying a man, you're going to run into those problems. You're going to have those issues. Proverbs 30 is where we just cited. You understand? So, family, let us continue in this case. We have here the comments. Thank you for typing in the number 4. Lets me know as I try to stay on top of the audio thing. Josephus says, in his writings that Israelites hold sacred 22 books. Cool. Where are Israelites getting all these books like Second Esdras, Pauline letters? Some aren't even attributed to Paul, but much later, okay? Yeah, the Ebionites, historically, the followers of Yahweh Shai hate Paul. Most brothers do not know that. And it's all good. My older brother in spirit wrote, allegedly, he said he was apostle to the Gentiles. One wrote, I used to believe that Paul was writing to scattered Israel in those places. While there were Israelites scattered to those places, yes, Paul proselytized. Proselytizing, family, means trying to make converts. All right? The actual Gentiles. Otherwise, Syrians, Ethiopians, and Armenians wouldn't have become Christians. All right? So that's what we're reading out of the chat. I'm not going to try to entertain somebody's silly face, but this is just something in that particular case. Family. If I can be heard well, people in good spirits, please press the number 4. If I can be heard well, family, and people in good spirits, again, I ask you, thank you, press the number 4. All right? Thank you for that. We want to, brothers and sisters, pull up the PowerPoint. It's just 10 slides, brothers and sisters. All right? In this particular case. Thank you for pressing, family, the number 4 in this particular case. All right? An explanation why we are Old Testament based. Exodus 4:22. And thou shalt say unto Paro, thus saith Yah, Beni bekor de Yisrael, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. What are we seeing here? The Most High is letting it be known who is his son. Now, we know in Egyptian ways, your firstborn son is a big thing among many men, even not into Egyptian thing or who are not even Egyptian. Your first boy, that's your boy. Your first son, that's what it is, who it is. Well, what's going on here is the Most High, through Moses, is saying to the Egyptians, Israel is that to him. Beni, my son, Bekori, my firstborn is Israel. That shows a relationship status. There are Israelites who have a problem believing in the New Testament in this verse here. What does that tell us? Sadly, no disrespect. There are Israelites who gave up their relationship, their status with the Most High. By you saying, family, somebody else is the son, as in the son in your place. Where do you fit in at? Why do we read, don't think of Abraham as our father? You understand? That's a problem. Why would that have to say, and then be the case in that manner? Why is there nothing compared to Deuteronomy 28, Leviticus 26? Not that everything has to be the sad news, and say the New Testament. So what Messianic brothers have asked us as Old Testament based is, well, when you read in Revelation, it says, I see your trouble and travail. and of those who say they are Jews, but are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Where do you see that in the Old Testament? Let's answer it. Edom should have not touched Jacob's portion. So if biblically the Jews come from Judah, the descendants of Jacob, and Esau is equated to the thief in Jeremiah, Esau is equated to the thief in Obadiah, then that is where that portion is. So when you now go and say, well, it says they that are Jews but are not, but are the synagogue of Satan, essentially stealing from the true house of Israel. Edom was already known for doing that since the days of Jeremiah and Obadiah. In Deuteronomy 28, and all your works shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up. So what you've accomplished, your own house of Israel, another people come along, first starting with Esau, then the Nabateans under Ishmael, because maybe no disrespect intended. You call us Old Testament based. You call us half book. So maybe you thought our knowledge, not to sound arrogant, stopped at Malachi, stopped at the Persian Empire. Maybe you didn't know that we read into the Apocrypha and understand what happened with the Maccabees, understood what Daniel was talking about, the kings of the north and the south and the war between the Ptolemies and the Seleucids. Maybe you didn't know that we studied about the Caesars and the link between Edom with Herod, Edom and Octavian, Edom and Herod, along with the Romans, the son of Antipater. You thought we stopped at Persia with our Artaxerxes? You limited us, brother. You limited where you thought we ended at because you called us Old Testament. You asked us, do we believe, and I'm being 100 on this, I could pull up the receipts of what I'm talking about. You said that we had to show the proof as if to say Josiah or Hezekiah before him was like the sacrificial lamb. No, we don't say that our kings died for us. We don't sit there and say that our parents died for us. We want our parents to live on. You understand? Precious in the sight of Yah is the death of his saints. Not that precious good thing, but we wanted to sit there and have it prolonged. Not diminished. Not they're going to come back as demons and walk in the street. Not every prophecy they say is of Jesus that was not fulfilled in his 33 years. He has to come back and do again. The one time you see prophecies recurring again and again that you can trace from kingdom to kingdom is something like Deuteronomy 28, because it says all these curses shall pursue and overtake thee. So you can sit there and trace it from the timing of Assyria to America. You understand? You're able to sit there and historically and prophetically do such. But when you give up in so many words and ways, your position, my brother, as the child of the Most High, in Exodus 4:22, in Deuteronomy 14, in Jeremiah 31, verse 9 and 10, and give it to somebody else, and then that somebody else is no longer here. What happened with the relationship that the Most High spoke by Moses? That's a problem. That's the kind of stuff that we question when we say why we do not subscribe to the say writings of, as known as the New Testament. Let's continue, family, in this. And Moses said, thus saith the Lord, about midnight will I go out in the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. What are we saying? In chapter 4, it says, if you even refuse to let my son go, I will slay your son, your firstborn. So now in chapter 11, the Israelites were not by that point released by the Egyptian leader. It says, the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die. The Most High is coming, and for the lack of a better term, with blood. Not signed treaties, not quote unquote reparations that have Washington that used black people's teeth, Lincoln, who put black people back in slavery after they were freed, Hamilton, that endorsed slavery, Jackson, that was a slave master, Grant, that was a slave master, Franklin, that endorsed slavery. So whether you take the $1 bill or even Jefferson on the $2 bill or Lincoln on the 5, going all the way to Franklin on the $100 bill, all of them were slave masters or endorsers of slavery. That's not your reparations. Kai, takat kai, life for life. Brothers and sisters. You understand? So just as they slew the sons of Israel, so their firstborn son slain. Not you shoot somebody on their wedding day in a car with 50 bullets, and then they go for a protest, and then eventually we might see something. That is not the ways of the said Old Testament. You see why Rome called that? See, in the beginning of the first 4 chapters of the Old Testament, Cain is told, sin crouched at the door, and to you is his desire. In the first 4 chapters of the New Testament, not that I was there, sounded like they couldn't wait to get to it. Forgive your trespassers and forgive those who did you wrong. It's like you couldn't even wait to sit there and get to that portion. Forgive. Whereas the Old Testament doesn't talk first about forgiving, it talks about overcoming the sin. So you may not have to keep on saying, forgive me. Of course, we all need mercy. None of us are perfect. We all filthy rags. But how do you sit there and ask for forgiveness before you ask to be strengthened to not have to ask again and again? You already cut yourself off saying somebody else is the son, O house of Israel. You gave somebody else your portion. You did what Esau did. Esau gave up his birthright. Messianic brothers is giving up their portion, saying somebody else is the son. Esau despised his birthright, and Yisrael has too. Anytime you say, as an Israelite, Jesus and or Christ, or Jesus Christ is the firstborn son of God, and you're not thinking about Exodus 4:22, you're not thinking about your portion with the Most High in Jeremiah chapter 31, verses 9 and 10, Israel is my son and Ephraim is my firstborn. We cut ourselves off saying to somebody else. Did not our forefathers write that Esau despised his birthright by giving it up like that to Jacob? So now what is Jacob doing? Is Jacob giving up his portion? Do we despise the position that we have with our father? Stop that, O Israel. Claim your right. Don't listen to somebody saying in Matthew 3:9, what have we say not we have Abraham as our father. Isaiah chapter 51 says, look to Abraham your father. We have a different portion than these nations. Let's continue, family. Deuteronomy 4:32. For ask now of the days that are past, which were before you, since the day that Elohim created man upon the earth, and asked from the one end of the heaven unto the other, whether there have been any such thing as this great thing is, or hath ever been heard like it. Did ever a people hear the voice of Elohim speaking out of the midst of the fire as thou hast heard and lived? Or has Elohim essayed to go and take him a nation from the midst of another nation by temptations, by signs, and by wonders, and by war, and by a mighty hand, and by a stretched out arm, and by great terrors, according to all that Yah Eloheka, the Lord thy God, did for you in Egypt before your eyes? In other words, did anything like the Exodus happen in history prior to the Exodus happening? No. In history, we've gone over the Brooklyn Museum papyrus, external source showing about Hebrews were enslaved in Egypt. We've gone over the Apocrypha papyrus. And one of the things, not to get sidetracked, how you can date the Apocrypha papyrus is because it speaks of the Magi, Madjai. The Magi were in Egypt during Egyptians' Middle Kingdom. A brother teaches that the Egyptians enslaved the Hebrews during the time of the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. But that's another subject. But when we get into this and speaking upon the relationship between the Most High and his people, the children of Israel, we see that there is a connection. Separate the men from the women 3 days before I speak with them. Put bounds around the mountain, and when the Most High did speak, Israel backed up. And it says that Moshe drew unto the people the thick cloud where Elohim was. How are you going to say in Philippians that can be equated to a man? How are you going to sit there and say that, brothers and sisters? We have a relationship with the Most High. It was shown in the scriptures with the Egyptians. Don't give up your portion. Don't sell out like Esau did his birthright. Israel will not be replaced. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Now, Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness. And they said, like that, the Son of Man, and they talking about Jesus, must also or be lifted up, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have eternal life. Let's see. And the people spoke against Elohim and against Moses. Wherefore have ye brought us up out of Mizraim, Egypt, to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul loatheth this like bread. And Yah sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much of the people of Israel died. Therefore, the people came to Moshe and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against Yah and against thee. Pray unto Yah that he take away the serpents from us. And Moses prayed for the people. And Yah said unto Moshe, make thee a fiery serpent and set it upon a pole. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live. And Moshe made a serpent of brass and put it upon a pole. And it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. Now that's in Numbers, right? In the Old Testament. Let's see what happens in 2 Kings. King Hezekiah, it speaks of saying here, he removed the high places and break the images and cut down the groves and break in pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made. For unto those days, the children of Israel did burn incense unto it, and he called it Nehushtan. Just as Israelites worship the object Moses made, so will people worship Jesus. Yet, the object that was worshipped was destroyed by a righteous King Hezekiah. What am I pointing out? Brothers and sisters, they worship years later the brazen serpent that Moses made. And it was destroyed by a righteous king. King Hezekiah was not reproved or rebuked for destroying. That was the people worship. That was not the Most High. So now, if the New Testament in John is saying, just as that serpent was lifted up in the time of Moses, so shall the Son of Man, and they talking about Jesus in that case, be lifted up. Israelites sadly worshiped that brazen serpent. And Israelites sadly today worship Jesus. So what do you think is going to happen by a righteous king? Just as King Hezekiah destroyed the thing because the people made it a god, and people do make Jesus a god, as we've seen in Philippians, what do you think is going to happen with that? Christianity and its affiliates. Destruction. Let's continue. We've been citing Deuteronomy 14. Ye are the children of the Lord thy God. Ye shall not cut yourselves, nor make any boldness between your eyes for the dead. Deuteronomy 14:1. For I am the Lord your God. Ye shall therefore sanctify yourselves, and ye shall be holy. For I am holy. Do we see the difference? We are to be holy because the Most High is. It's not the Most High becoming manly and then dying by the hands of any man, as the story of Christianity would say. And I have heard it said, and it's not about me, but I've heard it said that Rome killed God. They didn't say Most High or Creator, but who is God? When you're saying that they killed God on a cross, people do believe that Jesus is God in the flesh and was killed. I've heard, not that it's about me, people say God died that time. Crazy. For I am the Lord that bringeth you up out of the land of Egypt to be your God. Ye therefore shall be holy, for I am holy. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Hearken unto me, ye that follow after righteousness, ye that seek Yah. Look unto the rock from which you were hewn, into the hole of the pit whence you were digged. Look unto Abraham your father, and unto Sarah that bore you. For I called him alone and blessed him and increased him. And the citations are there. Now in Matthew we see, and think not to say within yourselves, we have Abraham to our father. For I say unto you that God is able of these stones to raise up children to Abraham. Matthew 3. See how the connection is not even sounding close? Bring my son out, let my son go, I'll slay your son. Compared to saying, don't even say you're the son of a man named Abraham. See how the conflict is there, brothers and sisters? Let's read Matthew 5:43 as we close out. And then Deuteronomy 30, brothers and sisters. And then we close out. We have here Matthew 5 as we explain why we are Old Testament based, right? It says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 43, if I can be heard well and people in good spirits, please press the number 4. I know people have in the past, 25 or so minutes ago. It's appreciated. Matthew 5:43, ye have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same? And if you salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans so? So, brothers and sisters, what are we seeing in that? we are seeing it being asked for you to love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you. Let's remember that. Now let's go in the Old Testament as we close out. And let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 30, family. And let's see what it says, regular King James Version, because that's the version many people read, right? And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, Israel, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord thy God have driven thee, and shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice, according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thine soul. That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations, whither the Lord thy God have scattered thee. If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it. And he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate you, which persecute you. And thou shalt return and obey the voice of the Lord, and do all his commandments which I command thee this day. What can we gather from that, family? When we read in Matthew 5, it says, but I say in verse 44, but I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you. So you have to love your enemies, bless them that curse you. So you're being cursed, but you're blessing them. You're loving who hate you. You're doing good to those who hate you. And you pray for them that despitefully use you and persecuting you. Whereas in the Old Testament, we see the citation in Deuteronomy chapter 30 says, and the Lord thy God will put these curses on thine enemies and on them that hate you, who persecute you. So you don't pray for them that use you, that curse you, that despitefully persecute you. That's not the way of the said Old Testament. What you do in the way of the said Old Testament is return to the Lord thy God. The way of the New Testament is not telling you. It is not telling you to return to the Lord thy God. It's asking you, what do the publicans do? Do not even the publicans the same? So it's not asking you about your relationship with the Most High being his son. It's not asking you about your relationship with the Most High being close, he being your father. It is asking you to look at the publicans and don't greet your people who love you with love, but love those that persecute you, that despitefully use you, and who hate you. Whereas those who hate you will be removed from your circumference mentally and other aspects when you return to doing the laws of the Lord our God. Why is Matthew not saying that? It's because, brothers and sisters, the concepts are different between, say, the Old and the New Testament. Thus ends this presentation, brothers and sisters. We hope, we pray that nobody was offended. We hope, we pray, brothers and sisters, that this was understood. I can be reached, family, 908-587-4841. And with that, stay tuned. We intend to have more presentations come through. And I'm going to, again, take the liberty, if I may, YouTube, we want to look, if we will, brothers and sisters, at sign out, if we will, go here, if we will. Our brother and friend, It's All Good, did a video that I want to put inside of the chat. All right? In this particular case. So if I remember, I think it was on this one. Yes. Now, this video here is done by my older brother and spirit and friend. It's All Good. I have permission from him from last time to sit there and put it into the chat. So I want to do it again. Subscribe to his platform as well, brothers and sisters. And I'm going to put it inside of these videos when they upload. All right? So we are open again to constructive criticism. Everyone may have not agreed. I do apologize if I offended anyone. This is here to let it be known what the truth is, and this is to let it be known what we are into. Brothers and sisters, be well, create a bless, and shalom. Thank you for your time.